Alright, you all know the drill by now. The Last of Us episode 3 dropped, and today we are going to be discussing and dissecting what makes this episode tick. Moreover, we'll go into depth regarding how the inclusion of a completely separate story actually does more to combine the world of the outbreak together rather than divide it. The latter being something many have complained about thus far, stating the episode to be too much of a disconnect from the overall narrative. If you're new to this channel, hey there, and welcome aboard. As of recently, I've been analyzing the most special moments from The Last of Us' HBO show, and today will be nothing different. Watch the rest of my videos on The Last of Us if your curiosity is piqued to the conversations in this one. And without further ado, let's begin. So right off the bat guys, I gotta admit something. The title is actually misleading. That's cause there's not one specific scene that I deem to be most important, but rather two. So yes, you all are in for a treat today as we start off with the first scene that plays in chronological order. Before we witness the events of Bill and Frank's story play out, the episode begins with Ellie and Joel making their way to Bill's town after making a few pit stops along the way. One of these has Ellie, in typical Ellie fashion, wander away from Joel and stumble down into an empty basement cellar where she encounters an infected trapped underneath some rubble. The swell of the ambience along with the music makes the audience believe that Ellie is about to find herself in a whole heap of trouble, and her slow movements toward the infected rather than away from it only further build tension, as we all must have been internally yelling at her to run in the opposite direction. However, turns out that not only was the build in tension a misdirect as no incident occurs, but Ellie didn't even need Joel's aid as she slices and then subsequently kills the infected. At first, this scene perplexed me for a bit since I didn't quite understand what it hoped to prove. I mean, we already know of Ellie's daring and risk-taking personality, so what was the purpose of this encounter between her and the fungal dispenser? The more I thought about it though, the more the scene made sense. You see, Ellie has a much more contrasting side to her being developed, that being a more childlike attitude that wasn't present in the game. Up till episode 2 though, we didn't really get to have a proper glimpse at the darkness lurking within Ellie despite the hints. So this scene went on to show what she's really capable of, despite the fact that she still is just a child and sometimes acts like one. The balance of these two conflicting emotions is not just displayed as a turmoil within Ellie, but serves as a balance between the state of the world Ellie and Joel are traversing. The last two episodes are full of tragedy in the wake of the apocalypse, and this episode was a gentle reminder as to how, amidst the chaos, love can be born out of destruction. We'd see another example of this balance personified through Ellie later on too. That scene being one near the very end when Joel hears the words Bill had left for him before his death. This is also the scene I'll use to prove how the argument that this episode didn't progress the characters in present day 2023 is just invalid. For this though, we must travel back to the game and take a look at how the original Bill moved the story forward. Aside from quite literally being the reason that Joel and Ellie were able to progress, Bill also ignited an emotional redemption within Joel. Bill and Joel are a mirror to each other in many ways, both in the show and game. The only difference is that Bill's cynic and pessimistic attitude in the game was just a much more miserable version of Joel. And Bill's added distaste for human connection presented itself as a warning to Joel, since it was an indicator of the path he's heading down if he continued to close off and remain isolated from Ellie or anyone else for that matter. Joel's final meeting with Bill is a moment of understanding for him that plays a huge part in him finally being able to love again. I wholeheartedly believe that Bill's newly refined story in the show will play the same significant role in Joel's journey, but in a different way. You see, the show changes the kind of impact Bill has. In this version of the story, Bill never lost the love of his life and was thus able to grow old with him until the two had reached the end of their time together. It is a much more wholesome and fulfilling story. What's truly impressive though is that the writers never had to change the basis of Bill's character in order for him to get this ending. He still is cynical as well as pessimistic, although in this reality, he didn't let that negativity consume his life. This of course allowed him to have a beautiful one. And just like the game, Bill understands Joel here too, but instead of being a warning, Bill's letter directly hopes to help Joel see the error in his ways. And the thing is, it works. Joel is aware of the peaceful demise that Frank and Bill met. He is a clear example of how love doesn't always have to end in despair. This is his eye-opening moment. Pedro Pascal's body language and acting even changes just ever so slightly nearing the end of the episode. Joel from the game realized what he shouldn't do, whereas the Joel from the show now knows what would be best to do. And that, ladies, gentlemen, and all of the spawns of darkness is where Ellie comes back into play. Without Tess, Ellie has to play both angel and devil. Her two sides of the coin are what will tie her and Joel together in the end, as the two will get to see more of what the other is like. And thanks to Bill, the motion is already underway, and Joel has begun his journey. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing and leaving a comment down below. I love whatever you guys have to say regarding any of the topics I cover in my videos. In the meantime though, here are 2 videos that YouTube thinks that you'd enjoy. Give them a shot. I bet you won't be disappointed. Until next time, this has been Vexus, and see ya.